I am a cat spirit, yet I lost my heart to a mortal man. For him I surrendered my path to divinity and turned my back on the celestial halls of the gods. Time and again I walked into the jaws of death, holding my own life cheap if it meant his safety. Once, beneath the silver light of the moon temple, he whispered how blessed he was to have me. But that was before he fell for a demon hunter. Now he fancies himself a champion of justice, ready to draw his blade for what he calls the greater good. He calls me a calamity. He has forgotten that I am a cat spirit, and a cat spirit has 9 lives. When men like him, husbands, masters, grow too comfortable in their reality, they are easily blinded by what they call truth. They forget that the most monstrous things in this world are often themselves. Fate is a fickle thing. It turns on a whim. After 6 months apart, Li Wenlong returned to Jiangzhou. He did not return alone. The woman beside him was striking, sharp-featured, her hair bound in a severe knot beneath a bamboo hat. She wore robes the colour of fresh blood. A heavy blade rested across her back. When she removed her hat, her eyes revealed a chilling, predatory light. It was then that I saw them. A pair of exquisite orange jade earrings, carved into the shape of gourds. My heart constricted. In a letter sent half a year ago, Wenlong had promised me those very earrings. He said they would be my homecoming gift. Now they swayed gently against the jawline of a stranger. Miss Wei is a wanderer and a swordswoman, Li Wenlong announced. I was ambushed by bandits on the road. I owe my life to her formidable skill. I forced a smile. It felt like a mask. Then I am in your debt, Miss Wei, I said evenly. Thank you for returning my husband to me. You may call me Ting Ting, she said. The general is a hero of the Wei state, her voice like grinding stone. It was an honor. She paused. However, I sensed something foul clinging to him. Wenlong went rigid. I laughed softly. Miss Wei has a keen nose for such things. She speaks as though she were stalking prey. I am a sorceress as much as I am a blade, she countered. It is my life's work. If there is a demon in Jiangzhou, it must be purged, or the commoners will suffer the consequences. I met her gaze. She was not merely a protector. She was a woman fueled by righteous, vengeful fire. Li Wenlong looked at me, his eyes darting nervously. Lian, he said, Miss Wei has no place to stay. With the chaos in the city and refugees at the gates, it is far too dangerous for a woman to be alone. She will stay with us in the manor. He personally ushered her inside. His hand hovered near her back, as if ready to support her. He did not look back at me, yet his eyes never left her shadow. Even my mother-in-law seemed transformed. She stood in the courtyard, dazed, until our children ran to her, crying out for their father. Usually she would scoop them up. This time her hand stopped mid-air, trembling. Then it fell to her side. They are old enough to learn discipline, she snapped. This behavior is beneath the Li family. This was the woman who once insisted my children grow up wild and unburdened by noble rules. Now she watched them cry as they were led away, her expression flat and unreadable. Later, I found Wei Ting Ting standing in the flower hall. You are a beast of the higher realms, madam, she said, her voice dripping with disdain. You do not belong in a silk-lined cage, playing the lady of the house. A beast may mimic a human, but it can never be one. I chose to ignore her. She did not stop. The general loves his country more than his own skin, she said. If he knew he was sleeping beside a monster, do you believe he would still be so courteous? The fog in my mind finally cleared. "I have saved his life 7 times," I said firmly. "I have bled on battlefields beside him. We have a life here, children, history. The people of Jiangzhou love us." She smiled. Thin, cruel. "Do they?" she asked softly. "You have not seen him in 6 months, Lian, but he has seen plenty of me, and he told me," her voice dropped, "he loves me." I turned away. My voice was hollow. "That is impossible," I said. "It cannot be." He had stood before the matchmaker's shrine on Mount Donglin and sworn his life to me. He had looked me in the eyes and said, "To have a wife like you, what more could I ever seek in this life?" How could 6 months of absence turn a man's heart so completely toward a stranger? Over the years, I had forged myself into the perfect matriarch of this household, learning to bury my heart so deep that my face remained a calm porcelain mask. I turned back to Waiting Ting and offered a thin, practiced smile. "Miss Wei, you are a guest in this house. Do stay. As for this demon hunting of yours, we shall see if your prowess matches your words." "Do the people even believe in you anymore?" She stepped closer until she was staring directly into my pupils. "Madam, though I cannot yet force your true form to show, make no mistake, I will kill you." She spun on her heel and vanished into the corridor. I stood frozen at the entrance of the hall. The silence of the manor suddenly felt heavy. That was when I caught the muffled voices of Li Wenlong and my mother-in-law nearby. "Wenlong, I received your letters," the old woman was saying. "But for the last 6 months, Li An has done everything. She managed the estate, raised the children, served me hand and foot, and even opened a soup kitchen for the refugees. All of Jiangzhou says the Li family has a saint for a daughter-in-law. She does not look like a monster." I heard Li Wenlong let out a heavy, weary sigh. "She has saved my life too many times, Mother. Every time she was on the verge of death, she simply came back. It isn't natural." Waiting Ting's voice cut through their conversation like a blade. "It is the work of a demon. My mother was foolish. Perhaps she was simply too stubborn to see it." The moment Li Wenlong saw me enter, he clamped his mouth shut. I acted as though I had heard nothing, maintaining the grace of a general's wife as I gave orders for lunch to be served. But the meal was a torment. Throughout the hour, Wenlong and Waiting Ting exchanged private smiles and playful glances. Whenever they realized I was watching, they would look away at once, or shield their faces, as if sharing a secret I was too pure to understand. That night, Wenlong retreated to his study. He was in a foul mood, lashing out at my maid, Xiao In, for some imagined slight. "What kind of stubborn brat are you?" I heard him bark. I watched from the shadows, seeing the general I once loved with eyes wide and wild, strange with a new anger. "The great madam is still there," he muttered, "and she is being so damn disobedient." I composed myself and carried a tray of tea into the study. Li Wenlong and Waiting Ting were standing by the window, bathed in the cold glow of the moon. A small group of his trusted men stood nearby. I pushed the door open. I did not let my anger show. Wenlong offered no explanation for her presence. Instead, he spoke with a coldness that chilled my marrow. "Since you've walked in, I won't bother with excuses. I have been with you for many years, Li An, but this manor is no longer big enough. The other officials in Jiangzhou are already starting to whisper. They fear me because of you. I have decided. I am taking Ting Ting as my concubine." The tea tray slipped. The cup shattered on the floor. Scalding water soaked through my shoes and into my skin. Instinctively, Wenlong stepped in front of Wei Ting, shielding her as if she were the one in danger. He took a step toward me, then hesitated, then stopped. Song Lian, you are a girl from the countryside. You have done your best for this family all these years. But attending, the Li family must return to the capital, Nanjing. I need a woman whose status matches mine. Ting comes from a prestigious lineage. She's advised my life. I owe her this. I will bring her back to the capital with me. I knelt on the floor. My fingers brushed against jagged porcelain shards. Blood began to seep from a cut on my hand, a sight he had never seen without rushing to my side. You once told me, I whispered, that when the wars were over, we would go back to Nanjing as a family. He nodded. His face was flint. The children and you will stay here in Jiangzhou. In the future, unless it is urgent, you need not return to the capital. Xiaowen rushed to help me up. I looked at Wei Ting. There was no pride on her face, only a chilling, perfectly calm victory. She reached out and tugged at Li Wenlong's sleeve. He did not pull away. Song Lian, he said, I will prepare a grand wedding for her. She is staying here. Do not make things difficult for her. I was exhausted. My eyes were heavy with a weariness I could not voice. I searched his face, desperate to find even a flicker of the love we once shared. I found nothing, only the stone-cold gaze of a stranger. I returned to my bedroom. My thoughts spun like a storm. I, Song Lian, was once a cat spirit of Mount Donglin. I had been a breath away from ascending to immortality, until I startled a young soldier and fell into the trap of human love. For him, I abandoned the heavens. I spent years learning the tedious rules of humanity. I transformed myself into a clever and sharp mistress of the house. The people of Jiangzhou once said our love was the stuff of legends. Now, that past was nothing but smoke, dissipating in a single breath. I suddenly remembered what my grandmother had told me back on the mountain. Love, she said, is the most convenient thing in the world for a human. We spirits are simple. We do not understand their logic. The world is full of rules, and the human heart is nothing but a gambler's den. Don't go looking for trouble. I only want you to be a happy little spirit, roaming free on Donglin. I had ignored her. I left the mountain for Li Wenlong. I learned to be a good person, a good wife, and now it was all a hollow waste. To him, I was a demon, a thing to be feared. He simply could not believe that a good demon could exist in his world. Peace was a phantom. In the days that followed, I did not have a single moment of tranquility. I looked at my children, their eyes wide, innocent, and I had no words to explain why their father had turned into a pillar of ice. The day the general's manor in Jiangzhou was finally completed should have been a celebration. Instead, it felt like a funeral. Xiaowen came running into my quarters, her breath coming in ragged gasps. "It's Miss Wei," she panted. "She's ordered people to spread rumours throughout the city. They're saying the general's wife is a demon. They're saying if anyone eats the charity porridge you provide, they'll drop dead." I walked out to the gates. I watched the townspeople passing by. These were people who once looked at me with gratitude, with kindness. Now, their faces were distorted with the same coldness I had seen in Li Wenlong. "I heard she died 7 times, someone whispered, pulling their child away. 7 times she stood at death's door and lived. Only a demon has that many lives." "Yes," another hissed. "That's it. The refugees. The war. Perhaps it was this demon who drew the darkness here." Xiaoyin tugged at my sleeve. "Madam, please, let's go back inside." I looked down at her. "Are you afraid of me, Xiaoyin? They say I am a demon." Her nose crinkled. Her eyes brimmed with tears. "What's so bad about being a demon?" she said. "You looked after me. You healed my parents. You are the kindest soul in this world. If you are a demon, then you are a good demon." Li Wenlong donned his armor once more. The city's hatred reached a boiling point. The people believed that if they purged the demon, the war would end. On the eve of his departure, Li Wenlong came to my room. He stayed for a long time. There were no tender words. "The rumors," he said, his back to me. "I cannot ignore them. A general's wife cannot be a demon. I am taking the children away for a few days, for their safety." He left for the front lines. Half a month passed. Then the news arrived like a thunderclap. Li Wenlong had been captured by bandits. My mother-in-law finally emerged. She did not bring tea. She did not bring apologies. She knelt in the dirt at my feet, wailing. "I beg of you, save him. Save Wenlong just one more time." The servants fell to their knees, a sea of hypocrisy. Wei Ting stood behind them. Her eyes were red-rimmed. "Song Lian," she said, her voice trembling with borrowed righteousness. "Bring the general back," she said softly, "and I will grant you a path to live. I will let you go." I looked at her and almost laughed. She would grant me a path to live? Outside the manor, the citizens of Jiangzhou were kneeling. All of them. They wanted me to save their hero, just as I had done so many times before. They bound me to a cross of morality. If I refused, I was the heartless monster they claimed I was. If I succeeded, I was merely doing my duty before being discarded. My mother-in-law looked up at me. Her face was twisted. She gripped my son and daughter by their shoulders, too tightly. She was using my own children as leverage, a blood sacrifice to force me onto the road. I mounted my horse. I galloped through wild forests, branches tearing at my sleeves, the wind howling like judgment. When I reached the front lines, I saw it, a towering wooden platform. Li Wenlong was there, covered in blood, hanging from the high beams. My mind spun, my vision blurred, my heart cracked again and again. And yet, even then, I feared he might fall. I feared he would be hurt. I flew to the platform. I reached for the ropes. "Wenlong," I whispered. "Husband, wake up. I'm taking you home." His eyes opened. He raised his hands, not to reach for me, but to shield my sight. Cinnabar poured from the heavens. I could not move. Chains forged by a demon lord, wrapped around me. Cold. Final. I was bound to the scaffold. Wei Ting looked at me. Her face overflowed with pride. Song Lian, she said calmly, you were truly foolish. You are a demon. How could you possibly have feelings? Song Lian, do not blame yourself. And do not blame me for being heartless. Below us, the crowd gathered. Torches burned. People from surrounding cities swarmed the site. Wei Ting climbed the stage, torch in hand. Her voice rang out. The demon is dead, yet the people are not healed. She is not the general's wife, but a devil. If not for her, how could Jiangzhou have fallen into chaos and disaster? The mob erupted. Burn her! Burn the monster! Burn her to death! In my mind, every dying face I had ever saved flashed before me. They looked exactly like the people below. Just because I am a cat demon, must I die? They cast their wars, their hunger, their sins onto my body. I had never harmed anyone. Even to become human, even to keep saving others, I worked so hard to be good. Li Wenlong stared at me. His eyes were full of loathing. You and I have been together for a long time, he said coldly. But we are also man and devil. My Li family cannot have the bloodline of a demon. Something collapsed inside me, completely. I looked at him. They are innocent, I said quietly. A flicker of hesitation passed through his eyes. But Wei Ting spoke first. These beasts born of beasts, are they worthy of the Li name? Man and demon is a disaster the world cannot tolerate. You deceived the Li family. The crowd screamed, Deceiver! Death! Agent of demonic! The sky darkened. Clouds rolled with unnatural speed. Even the moon was smothered. The air reeked of execution. My mother-in-law brought the children onto the platform. My body went numb. My spirit thrashed. Father, they cried, I'm scared. Li Wenlong turned away. Wei Ting shouted, Kill them! The knife was raised by a young servant. Absurd! I broke the chains. Cast a spell, sending my children flying toward Mount Donglin. Fire erupted. I seized Wei Ting by the throat. I am a monster, I said calmly, and I do not fear fire. Pig's blood fades. Rain fades. I remain. She cried, How? Demons have no tears. Is compassion only for humans? Then a sword. His sword, the one I taught him to wield. It plunged into my body. He pulled her close, not me. Fire roared. Pain consumed everything. This was the man I loved for over a decade. He used fire to erase me. Then, arms. Familiar. My grandmother. She gathered me from the flames. Lian, she asked gently, is your heart finally dead? I was wrong, I whispered. She carried me home. My grandmother held me tightly. She carried me away from the flames. As the ground fell away beneath us, I heard Wei Ting's voice, sharp, fractured, rising in a scream of pure, unrestrained rage. Song Lien, I will never forgive you for this. Her voice faded. We returned to Mount Donglin. My 2 children were so shaken. The ghost immortal gave them soul-soothing soup. Still, they trembled. They could not sleep. Their eyes remained open, wide with terror, as if the height, the knives, the fire were still beneath them. My children were alive, but they were broken. After my grandmother finished treating my wounds, she stood over me. Her face was a mask of helpless frustration. A cat has 9 lives, she said quietly. For the sake of that man, you have already squandered most of them. No matter how great your karmic bond was, you cannot afford such leniency toward a mortal. Men speak of deep emotion, yet even the great god of the heavens, Emperor Huang, was blamed and cast down because of a woman. And you? You are sacrificing everything for a mere ordinary mortal. I did not argue. I could not. I only nodded, slowly. Grandma sat beside me. Her fingers moved through my hair. The tension began to bleed out of my spirit, and I slowly drifted into a deep, dark sleep. In my dreams, I was once again a 3-colored calico cat. Grandmother always said I was the most beautiful girl in the entire cat spirit kingdom. Those were the years I spent in spiritual practicing alongside her. Although I was clever and learned quickly, I was never interested in the sutras. I was only obsessed with the romantic love stories I heard in the tea houses at the foot of the mountain. Every day, I would sneak down to the base of the mountain to listen to Mr. Chen tell his stories. I used to imagine marrying a handsome, gentle young man and living a life of quiet happiness. Grandmother warned me constantly. Spirits who marry mortals never come to a good end. But I refused to believe her. Mr. Chen always said that the spirits of high ranking of Mount Donglin would eventually leave us starving for something more. One day, while I was out listening to those tales, I saved Li Wenlong. There had been a great commotion outside the tea house. Li Wenlong was there, drenched in blood and battered, being beaten like a common beggar by a wealthy landlord's men. Grandma had told me that if a spirit wished to ascend to immortality, they must perform acts of mercy and help those in distress. So I rescued the dying Li Wenlong and brought him back to Mount Donglin. Grandma had strictly forbidden mortals from entering the spirit nest, where our kind are born. Left with no choice, I settled him in the tree house belonging to the tree demon grandpa. Using the celestial herbs from our cave, I pulled Li Wenlong back from the brink of death. On the day he finally regained consciousness, I was there in the tree house. I remember his face so clearly. His eyes were incredibly sharp, piercing even in his weakened state. His voice was steady as he bowed to me and said, "Thank you for saving my life." I pleaded with the tree demon to let him stay and heal. That old demon, who had lived for 1,000 years and seen the true nature of the world, looked at me with a knowing sadness. He warned me. Demons are seen as bad, and monsters are evil. But humans are truly wicked. Even if you shower them with love, the moment they realize what you are, they will hunger for your life. I looked back at Li Wenlong then, my heart racing with an excitement I couldn't control. I thought humans only feared spirits because of misunderstandings, waiting to be cleared. So, I stayed. I healed his wounds. I taught him my sword techniques. And when he confessed his heart to me, I followed him down the mountain without hesitation. At the matchmaker's temple, halfway down Mount Donglin, he had sworn to me, "To have a wife such as this, what more could a man seek in fortune or wealth?" When we reached Nanjing, He knelt before his mother's closed door for hours, begging her to bless our marriage. Now I have awakened from that dream. Those 13 years feel like nothing but a pathetic absurdity. Inside the spirit nest, Gua and Jia huddled close to me. Their small bodies trembled. "Mother," they whispered, "is father really never coming back?" My voice caught. "If mother told you," I asked softly, "that mother is actually a monster, a demon, would you be afraid of me?" "No," they said at once. "Mother may be a monster, but she is a good monster." The high-ranking spirits of Mount Donglin soon learned of my return. They came quietly, disguised as villagers, afraid their true forms would frighten the children. The tiger demon god spoke first. "Do not grieve so deeply. Your spiritual foundation is still intact. In a few days, you may yet ascend to the heavens." An immortal brought an elixir of wisdom. My grandmother watched my wounds heal. "Fortunately," she muttered, "that sword was not a god-slayer. Medicine can heal the flesh, but not the heart. Liana, you have walked the mortal world. You must understand the book of men and demons by now." I nodded. I had no words. After the others left, Wu San'e remained. He stood there for a long time, something clutched in his hands. His eyes were bloodshot. Without speaking, he gave the children a small toy from his basket. Then he looked at me. Wu San'e had once told me he liked me. Now he stood before me with a pride that was heavy and silent. "Liana," he said slowly, "before you left the mountain, you told me, 'Perhaps I will never understand love, but now that I see him, I understand.'" He swallowed. "Now," he said quietly, "I only feel regret." He handed me a bottle. Then, without warning, he struck my pressure points. My spiritual power was already weak. I could not move. From the bottle, he poured 7 life cores inner pellets, glowing red with spiritual essence. His eyes were rimmed with madness. "Liana," he said hoarsely, "we are both kittens of the spirit nest. All these years, I lived in Nanjing, in Jiangzhou, as a butcher, a peddler, just to glimpse you from afar. Perhaps grandmother was right. We spirits are fools." He forced the pellets into my mouth. I choked. I fought. He unsealed my pressure points. "You must become a celestial," he whispered. "You were born for it." I grabbed his sleeve. "You're insane! You gave me your inner pellets. You only have 2 lives left." He smiled faintly. "You nearly died 7 times for that man. Now I give my lives to you. Live well." I tried to force the pellets out. He shook his head. "Only the owner may drive them." 2 months passed. My wounds healed. Wu San'e vanished. I searched the mountain range, found nothing. Then word came. Li Wenlong and Wei Tingting stood at the foot of Mount Donglin. Hundreds of demon hunters with them. They had captured lesser-level spirits, hung them in the city like trophies. Li Wenlong sat tall on his horse. His eyes were poison. "Song Lian," he shouted, "I told you, we are righteousness." Then they dragged out Wu San'er, broken, unrecognizable. Li Wenlong laughed. So, he's a demon too? I didn't expect an old flame waiting for you here. Wu San'er roared with what strength remained. You're full of shit. Liana is the best girl in the world. Li Wenlong leaped down from his horse and ground his boot into Wu San'er's neck. The people are suffering, he sneered. The emperor himself grieves for the commoners. The sword of the azure sky has already calculated that the demon of the southern mountain is to blame. Do you really think you can threaten us? I cried out, my voice trembling as I rushed toward him. We are of Donglin. We will become celestials. I ran toward the line, but Wu San'er, seeing the danger, lunged forward. With a final desperate burst of strength, he slammed his head against Waiting Ting's blade. Blood sprayed across the dirt. His eyes found mine one last time. Lien, now I know what love is. I reached him, but I was too late. I could only catch his collapsing body as the light left his eyes. At that moment, the other demon hunters surged forward, storming the mountain. They ignited a great fire, a magical blaze that sought to devour the spiritual essence of the tree demon Grandpa. Grandma and the other elder spirits threw themselves into the fray, a desperate struggle against talismans and steel. I saw Li Wenlong and Waiting Ting smiling. To them, Wu San'er's death was a glorious victory, a triumph of their righteous cause. The smaller spirits, those who could not fight, were trapped. Those with higher spiritual foundation had their barriers shattered, their centuries of hard-won power stripped away in an instant. Som Lien! A flower spirit, Ching Ching, wailed in sorrow. You are the curse of Mount Donglin. If not for you, San'er would still be alive. Our kin would not be dying. It was your craziness for that wretched mortal that brought this upon us. Ching Ching had loved San'er in silence. Now her grief was a whetted blade. She clung to me, her voice a hissed sob. Do you know, when you were pierced by Li Wenlong's sword, you should have died. It was San'er who traded his destiny for yours, giving you all 7 of his inner pellets. You only had one life left, Song Lien. He wanted to kill Li Wenlong for you. And look at you. You were so easily deceived that you nearly died on that platform. You should have died there. Grandma and the ghost immortal exhausted their strength to set up a final ward, a barrier to keep the army from reaching the summit. But Li Wenlong was relentless. He used his military authority to summon more soldiers until the mountain was besieged by a sea of black-clad men. A dark sorcery, the magic of a demon lord, began to shroud the mountain range, towering into the clouds. Li Wenlong stood just outside the mountain's boundary. His voice boomed through the mist. Song Lien, if you surrender yourself to me and come to Nanjing to offer your life to the emperor, I will spare the rest of the mountain. Through the rain and the fire, I saw Li Wenlong's face. He looked at me with a cold, unwavering gaze. A second blade pressed into my chest. Waiting Ting stood beside him, holding an umbrella over them both. Their eyes were fixed on me, waiting. Fine, I said, my voice hollow. I will go with you. Grandma grabbed my arm. Her eyes pleaded. My 2 children clung to my robes. I gently patted Grandma's hand. I shook my head. I leaned into her ear and spoke in the cat tongue only she could understand. Grandma, I want their lives. After I am gone, you must help Ching Ching and Uncle Tiger. They must take their revenge. I stepped out from behind the barrier. Li Wenlong's face shifted, just a flicker. Triumph. Or perhaps something worse. Possession. He seized my wrist, his grip bruised, and forced me into the plush corner of a carriage. As we began the journey to the capital, he looked at me with a severe, self-righteous expression. Sung Lien, do not think me unreasonable. The world is in chaos. The imperial court says demons are the cause of the refugees and the suffering. The emperor needs to silence the rumors, and you are that demon. If you die for his sake, you should count yourself lucky. I have already been lenient with the other monsters on the mountain. I said nothing. His face darkened. That Wu Sana. He had feelings for you, didn't he? He wanted to kill me. Was that your idea? When I remained silent, his anger flared. He couldn't read the depth of my fury. He thought I was throwing a tantrum. Treating me like the weary, stupid woman who once managed his household. He truly believed he still held power over me. Despite everything that had transpired, Li Wenlong looked at me and saw only the woman he had known for years, the tireless, somewhat slow-witted wife who managed his halls and swallowed her grievances. He truly believed I was still that same creature. I saved you 7 times, Li Wenlong, I said softly. He bristled. A flash of annoyance crossed his features. Before he could retort, Wei Tingting swept into the carriage, the curtain fluttering behind her. She brandished a magical artifact, boasting of how she had captured several lowly grass spirits to take back to her master for the refinement of elixirs. She sat down, preening. Li Wenlong looked away, just for a heartbeat. And in that heartbeat, I struck. My hand transformed, cat claws extended. I plunged them into Wei Tingting's chest. I didn't just strike. I reached in and tore out her vibrant, pulsing heart. I had placed a silent binding spell on her. She couldn't even manage a scream. Her eyes went wide, frozen in a mask of shock. Li Wenlong gasped. You. I threw the bloody heart onto the floor of the carriage. As you wished, Li Wenlong. I am not just a monster. I am the monster that ends your life. You owe me 7 lives, and now I have come to collect. His righteousness fled him in an instant. Wei Tingting sat there, a hollow corpse. My hands were drenched in her blood, the same blood that stained his white shirt. He looked at his own hands, trembling, as if realizing his borrowed power was useless now. Tears began to roll down his face. He actually wept. Li Wenlong, I whispered, though she was dead. Did you think you were the only one who could cry? I begged for the lives of the spirits on the southern mountain, creatures who had never harmed a soul. You were so arrogant in your desire to slaughter us. And now, you cry? I reached out. I forced my spiritual energy into Li Wenlong's chest. I tore his soul right out of his body. As I held his essence, I thought of the people in Jiangzhou, and I laughed. A jagged, strange sound. Wei Ting, I should thank you. You helped me find such a perfect place to settle my kin. The people of Jiangzhou hated me so much they wanted to burn me alive, ignoring every mercy I ever showed them. Why shouldn't I take their skins? Why shouldn't the spirits of the mountain wear their hides and live in their homes? I took the soul forms of both Li Wenlong and Wei Ting, sealed them into a spirit bottle. When the flower spirit, Qing, and the tiger demon god arrived, they stepped into the skins of my husband and his mistress. We sat together in the carriage, 3 spirits dressed as humans, rolling toward the heart of the empire. We reached the capital. I looked up at the emperor sitting upon his golden throne. He claimed to be the son of heaven, the true dragon. I wondered, could the heavens truly produce such a poisonous, cruel lineage? I was brought before him, intentionally appearing dishevelled, filthy. The aging emperor, leaning heavily on the arm of his grand preceptor, shuffled toward me. To think such a creature actually exists, the emperor murmured. The preceptor told him that sacrificing a demon to the heavens would solve the empire's disasters. He looked at Qing, still disguised as Wei Ting, with a proud, paternal smile. My disciple has finally proven herself, he said. The preceptor ordered my chains to be loosened for the ritual. But Qing did not move to begin the sacrifice. Instead, she swung her blade and sent the hunters of the southern mountain flying back. Before the preceptor could react, her sword was at his throat. The old emperor scrambled back, hiding behind his throne. He had spent years claiming he was searching for fame and virtue, while the world outside rotted with famine. He was a coward wrapped in yellow silk. The tiger demon, wearing Li Wenlong's skin, could no longer maintain the charade. The emperor tried to hide behind him, clutching at his armor. Wenlong, you must protect me! Protect you? The tiger demon growled. Oh, I'll protect you. He reached back and seized the emperor by the throat. The grand preceptor, nothing more than a skilled sorcerer playing at godhood, tried to cast a binding spell. I didn't give him the chance. My claws found his chest, pinning him where he stood. Qing reached out, gripped the skin of his face, and peeled it away like wet parchment. I dug out his heart. He died with a look of utter disbelief. The guards and eunuchs screamed and fled. The emperor sat on the floor, his regal dignity shattered. The preceptor was the strongest man in the world. How? I grabbed the emperor by his robes and hauled him to the window. I threw him out into the chaos of the city. He didn't die from the fall. He died because the other members of the royal family, seeing their chance, immediately targeted his heart with their own arrows. To humans, regicide is just another common sin. I stood in the air above the capital, watching the panic below. These people, who had lived on the blood of others, were now shrieking in terror. Human hearts are truly such lost, confused things. This was not enough. I still had things to do. Jiangzhou City, the place where the general's manor had been my home for so many years. My dear mother-in-law. All those people who once claimed to be good to me. Now, they wanted me dead. Even the refugees, whom I had fed, now sought the slaughter of my son and daughter. Qing and the tiger demon, Su Yang, returned to the base of Mount Donglin first. Now that the imperial city was in total chaos, the next emperor would undoubtedly write his own legend, claiming he seized the throne to purge the world of demons. Such is the trickery of the human heart. I have finally learned, after all these years, to understand how they think in this world. As I walked through the city, I saw Xiaoying. She was being insulted by a mob of refugees outside the gates of Jiangzhou. She was dressed in rags. Her head was covered in the remains of thrown noodles. The refugees were shouting curses at Song Lian, the wife of the former general. Xiao Ying rushed into the crowd, screaming back at them, "No, my mistress is the best woman in the world!" When the refugees heard her speaking up for me, they turned. They began to heap their abuse and filth upon her instead. The general's manor was now sealed tight. She had been driven away, pinned in a small alley not far from the manor's walls. I struck the face of a man named Jinfu, who was harassing her. The sound cracked through the alley. I stood before her, my face veiled. "Madam, you've returned. How are the young master and the young lady?" I nodded to her. She looked at me again. Her eyes searched mine with a pained intensity. "That day, when I saw the general stab you on that high platform, I truly thought you wouldn't survive." I looked at her, noting her ragged clothes and the way she had been cast out. I asked the girl beside me, "Why aren't you at the general's manor?" Xiao Ying lowered her head, her voice trembling. "The old madam said that because I had been mixed up with those monsters for so many years, I was no longer a good person. Everyone in the manor thinks I am wicked now. They kicked me out of the house and told me to fend for myself, to live or die on my own." I reached out and gently patted her small, weathered face, led Xiao Ying back to the gates of the general's manor. I pushed them open with force, the heavy timber slamming against the stone walls. My mother-in-law scrambled backward, her face twisted with terror. I walked toward her, one step at a time. With every step, I remembered how I used to serve her. The years of pouring her tea, tending to her whims, treating her with the devotion of a daughter. Thinking of the person I used to be, I felt like a fool. I felt as though I had been dull and stupid as a pig. All that effort, all that sincerity, wasted on a woman who would gladly watch me burn. "Mother-in-law," I hissed, my voice cold as the grave. "Do not try to flee." She tripped over her own robes, her breath breaking into ragged gasps. You were dead. Wenlong told me you were dead." "He tried," I said. Behind me, the shadow of my true form began to flicker. "But you seem to have forgotten. A cat has 9 lives. And I have spent 8 of them being good for people like you. I have only 1 left, and I do not intend to spend it on mercy." The nursemaid, seeing my expression, tried to intervene, but I did not even look at her. With a wave of my hand, the air itself tightened around her throat. "I fed this household," I said, my voice climbing into a roar that shook the roof tiles. "I protected this city. And in return, you took my children to a scaffold and cheered for my execution. Tell me, mother-in-law, who is the real monster here?" She could not answer. She could only weep and beg. But her tears meant nothing to me now. I had learned the hard way. A human's tears are often just another lie. The servants of the Jiangzhou general's manor, every single one of them, were orphans I had taken in over the years, children displaced by war, left with nothing. I never once treated them as servants. I treated them as kin. Their daily work was nothing more than helping me sort medicinal herbs, assisting me in healing the sick, saving lives. And yet, though they never dared to curse me to my face, they all harbored the same desire. They all wanted to kill me. I began to cry, and then I began to laugh. In that moment, only Xiao Ying remained at my side. She supported my weight. "Madam," she whispered, "you are exhausted. Thank you for everything." Suddenly, a bold young stable boy, one of those I had raised, charged out from the shadows, a blade in his hand. "Kill you!" he screamed. "You monster of the mortal world!" I moved faster than his eyes could follow. When my hand pressed against his chest, stopping him in his tracks, I leaned in. "Do you even remember who it was that carried you back from the bloody dirt of the battlefield?" He could only gasp for air. His eyes widened. Something flickered. Who in this mortal world was he truly looking at? Just then, hearing the commotion, the people of the city pushed open the great doors of the general's manor. They swarmed inside. At the same time, the spirits of Mount Donlin were stirred. They had seen enough. The cruelty, the hypocrisy, the hunger. Their fury could no longer be contained. They descended upon Jiangzhou. Battle erupted. The spirits fought with savage desperation. In the chaos of the city, they stripped skins from the people of Jiangzhou, stepping into their forms, taking their lives. The city that once called for my blood was reclaimed by the very monsters they feared. Inside the general's manor, the servants' screams were silenced by mountain-kin. I stood before Li Wenlong and Wei Ting. They were no longer a general and a righteous hunter. They had no bodies, no strength, only pale faces, wisps of essence, staring out at a Jiangzhou that no longer belonged to humans. The high platform, once my prison, would now be the place their souls took flight, into oblivion. Li Wenlong looked at me. "I am already dead," he begged. "Why won't you let me go?" I gripped the soul-slaying blade from the spirit nest. I drew it. The sound pierced the air, so sharp it felt as though it tore through eardrums. Li Wenlong clutched his ears, screaming. "Put down the blade," he gasped, "and you shall have peace." Do you truly intend to become a demon, guilty of unpardonable evil? Put down the blade and have peace? I repeated his words and laughed. Does the man who slaughtered me even have the right to say such things? The soul-slaying blade cut through his spirit. He vanished, erased. Wei Ting's scream rang out, and then she vanished with him. Not a trace remained. Jiangzhou City became the domain of spirits and monsters. When demon hunters sent by the imperial court attempted to counterattack Mount Donlin, they found only emptiness. The mountain had already withdrawn. The new emperor, newly enthroned, needed terror to cement his rule. Those arrogant demon hunters became nothing more than meat on his chopping block. I watched it all, layer after layer. Plotters obsessed with those above them, each gripping the chain, each pulling upward, never realizing they were all being strangled by the same hand. This is how the human world works. By then, the monsters had already returned to the depths of Mount Donglin. No human dared set foot there again. Rumors shifted. Stories changed. To mortals, the mountain became a forbidden land, a place spoken of only in whispers. At the foot of the mountain, in Red Gorge Village, Mr. Chen no longer told tales of travellers. Now he spoke of Jiangzhou. Some say, he would murmur, the refugees entered the city and found it empty, streets scattered with abandoned husks of people. Others said the city had been taken by gods. Men began to fight over the so-called sacred land of Jiangzhou, believing that if they seized it, they too might ascend. High officials refused to acknowledge the truth, and of the general's wife, the woman who once fed the poor and healed the sick, they said she had vanished. Perhaps, they whispered, she had become a celestial. Gur and Jie grew drowsy listening to these stories. I led them down from the tea house. Stories, after all, are meant to end there. That night, after I brought the children back to Mount Donglin, after the mountain had fallen silent, I heard a familiar voice. When kindness and enmity are weighed together, those who commit evil must bear their own consequences. I froze. A great God stood before me. I lowered my head. Great God, I whispered. Song Lian believed there would never again be a chance to ascend. The god's smile rested gently upon me. Light gathered, quiet, weightless, inevitable. To become a god or a celestial, the great god said, one must possess great love. But there is also the law of karma. If you cannot settle your own debts of cause and effect, how can you uphold justice in the mortal world? I nodded. At last I understood. From this day forward, the god declared, Song Lian shall become the cat spirit sovereign. All spirits of the mortal realm shall answer to you. Mount Donglin is your sacred mountain. Your chapter there has ended. Grandma laughed, not with relief, but with joy. We had never imagined that ascension would not come from hiding in the mountains, but from descending into the mortal world and surviving it. After the true God departed, I journeyed to the capital of the underworld. The lord of the underworld was busy, too many souls spiraling in chaos. When I asked for the lotus altar lamp, he did not speak. He simply handed it to me. With its light, I mended the souls of Wu San and all the spirits who had perished on Mount Donglin. After everything had finally grown quiet, I looked at my children. I looked at my kin. I had spent 8 lives trying to be what mortals wanted, and found my divinity in the 9th, the life where I finally stood up for myself. The sun set over Mount Donglin. Stories would continue to change. Emperors would continue to rise and fall. But the cat spirit sovereign remained, watching over the silent woods. So, final thoughts?
Honestly, she was kind. Like, deeply kind. 8 lives worth of kind. Which, looking back, might have been a little excessive.
Love can do that. It stretches patience in ways that feel noble at the time and exhausting later.
Yeah. And it wasn't that loving was wrong. It's just that she kept trying to explain herself to people who had already decided who she was.
That's the part that changes everything, isn't it? Not when she stopped loving, but when she stopped justifying herself.
Exactly. Once she did that, things moved very quickly. Almost shockingly quickly.
She didn't become cruel. That's the part people always get wrong. She just stopped bending herself into something smaller so others could feel comfortable. Once she saw things clearly, really clearly, there wasn't much left to argue about.
Yeah. So if there's a lesson hiding in all this, it's probably not don't love. It's more like don't spend 9 lives trying to convince people you deserve basic respect. And some debts don't need forgiveness. They just need to be settled, preferably before you run out of lives.
And before you go, if you stayed with this story all the way to the end, thank you. There are more Liao Zhai style stories. If you'd like more stories like this, ghost stories, modern horrors, true ghost, a little dark, a little human, you are welcome to subscribe. It helps the channel. Don't forget to come back for another story or two.
No pressure, just the door's open.